Trivikram, we are live on Facebook.
Ma'am, can we start the session, ma'am?
Please, please.
Good evening, a warm welcome to all of you to the webinar series hosted by Advocates Association Bengaluru. We have with us today Srimati S. Sushila, Senior Advocate, High Court of Karnataka. Ma'am, we are very happy to have you with us today. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
Now I take the privilege to introduce our today's speaker. Srimati S. Sushila is practicing for last 34 years and is designated as a senior advocate by the High Court of Karnataka. She is a senior mediator and master trainer associated with MCPC, Supreme Court of India. Srimati Sushila is a columnist and her 3 books on mediation have been very popular. She appears in small screens regularly in discussion related to social and legal issues. Ma'am, once again, on behalf of Advocates Association Bengaluru, I extend a warm welcome to you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Vikram. At the outset, I'm extremely thankful to Advocates Association Bangalore for providing me this opportunity. I would like to congratulate Advocates Association Bangalore because this is a testing time for all of us. Somebody rightly said, somebody's ship is sinking and somebody's boat is sinking. Nevertheless, we may not have sufficient food for our pocket, but Advocates Association Bengaluru is providing us sumptuous food for our brain. I'm extremely thankful to them. Each of the webinars has been wonderful. I have been following each of those. I'm beholden and I'm extremely thankful to the organizers for taking this pain and this initiative. I wish all of you all the best. Now, I have chosen this topic, mediation advocacy. Why did I choose this topic? I had 4 aspects in my mind. According to me, mediation is an extended branch of law, number 1. And I feel sincerely that this mediation advocacy should become an extended branch of law practice. With this, I thought of taking this topic. The second concept was practice development. We need to look at a situation where we promote mediation advocacy as an essential tool in practice development. Not only in mediation advocacy, even in our other practice also. That's where I request mediation advocacy to be considered as a practice development tool. That was my second objective. The third objective was fee or income. Unless we enhance our professional skills, we can't look at some other avenues. Deriving significant fee or income from mediation advocacy was another thought that was working in my mind, which I thought would help our youngsters, and it will also satisfy them in one way or the other was the third objective. The fourth objective was looking at various enactments today. There have been amendments to several statutes, for example, Commercial Courts Act, where pre-institution mediation has been made mandatory. And then you have Consumer Protection Act, Company Act, and there are several regulations where mediation is provided for. And family courts, as all of you know, have been extensively and effectively using mediation to bring reconciliation between the parties. Considering all these things, if we do not assist parties effectively, being trained in mediation advocacy specifically, then probably I think time is not for some others to get into our roles and they will start acting as intermediaries or some others may take our role. So considering these 4 aspects, I thought mediation advocacy is one of the topics which we have to popularize amongst our youngsters. In fact, in some of the law schools, they are introducing this as a subject. But for our youngsters, I feel that the Bar Council and the Advocates Association should take an initiative to give training at least for 2 days in mediation advocacy so that this becomes an extended branch of practice of law. This is the objective with which I have chosen this topic. Before going to the topic of mediation advocacy, let us just think about our profession, lawyer's profession or legal profession. It is considered as a noble profession. If I remember rightly, it was Daniel Webster, a wonderful trial court advocate, a very renowned advocate, who said, justice is the greatest concern of man on earth. I repeat, justice is the greatest concern of man on earth. But for the fact that we advocates are associated with this justice delivery system, our profession, I don't think, would have been called as a noble profession. That's one aspect which we can never forget. The second is, as all of you know, every dispute is associated with some emotional element, emotional quotient in this dispute. Now you see, if you look at this, of all the emotions, one of the emotions which haunts a person too much, which is the strongest of majority of the emotions, is the emotion which is fear. And the oldest of the fears human being has ever experienced, and which he is experiencing even to this day, is fear of unknown or fear of uncertainty. Look at this. If our profession is not part of that process where we are addressing this emotion and bringing a full stop to this fear of unknown or fear of uncertainty, probably our profession wouldn't have been called as a noble profession. This is a second angle with which we have to look at. If we are unable to do something, it is time for us to take a call and take some other measure so that we address these two aspects. One is justice is the greatest concern of humankind, and we should assist people in getting over their fear of unknown or fear of uncertainty. These are the two elementary aspects. I would like to quote Roscoe Pond probably. He was the person who said, any profession, if you consider it as a standard profession, it should have three essential ideas. One of the essential ideas is organization, and the second one is learning, and the third one is spirit of public service. These three are the primary essential idea of any standard profession. Even our advocates profession has this. There is organization, there is learning, and there is a spirit of public service. We are all involved in all these things. There is yet another remaining idea, which doesn't fall under the category of three essential main ideas, which is gaining a livelihood. When we follow these three first ideas, that is organization, learning, and spirit of public service, I'm sure the fourth one, which is a remaining idea, which will definitely be incidental to the first three ideas. Every one of us is sure to get our livelihood assured, is what I would like to impress upon our young advocates here. Assuming for a while we are taking care of these three primary ideas, that is organization, learning, and principle of our spirit of public service. Still, if we continue to work in the old fashion, without looking at the calendar or without looking at the clock, probably people will run away from us. Time has already started. Before people will run away from us and go to any other mechanisms, it is time for us to provide them some alternative but equally appropriate mechanism for dispute resolution. It is in this context, mediation and mediation advocacy is very important. Now I'll just take 3 or 4 minutes of your time to explain what mediation is. Then we shall go to the concept of mediation advocacy. What is mediation? Mediation is a process where parties to a dispute get their dispute resolved by themselves with the assistance of a neutral mediator who has no right to impose his or her opinion or agreements on the disputing parties. What is the role of a mediator here? Mediator will only facilitate the process. Mediator will control the process. Mediator will assist the parties in negotiation using communication skills and negotiation skills. This is the idea behind mediation. When I say mediation is a process where dispute can be resolved, we need to understand what exactly is dispute. How does dispute arise? Dispute is the result of violated expectations. Dispute is the result of unmet needs. What I want is not happening. What I do not want is happening. I want to enjoy my site, property, 30 by 40 site. I want to enjoy that. Not happening. I do not want my neighbor to encroach upon my property. Happening. Every day is parking his car in my 30-40 site. And he is not allowing me to park my car in that 30-40 site, which belongs to me, which I have kept vacant for these purposes. So what I want is not happening. What I do not want is happening. That is the main reason behind a dispute. When we say dispute resolution mechanism, litigation has been time tested. This adjudication process, judicial system, this is time tested. People have immense faith in this. For hundreds of years, we have been trusting courts. For us, a judge is not Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. For us, a judge is the personification of goddess of justice. That is the faith we have. That is where the people have approached them. But still, in the absence of the cooperative role of advocates, you cannot ask a person to move from public delivery of justice system to private delivery of justice system. They will think when a matter is referred to mediator, the first question any client will ask is, I have trust in this system, this judiciary, I have utmost trust in this judiciary. There is a judge. I have faith in this judge. Why did they send me to a mediator? I do not want to go before mediator. I don't want this matter to be settled before a mediator. This is the conflict that makes a person withdraw himself and at times makes him not participate voluntarily or wholeheartedly in the entire mediation process. That is where we are looking at advocates' cooperative role in this entire process, where dispute can be resolved with the assistance of a lawyer. In fact, if I look back at the cases that I have handled as mediator, I always say in more than 90% of the cases where there has been wonderful cooperative role of lawyers, the success has been achieved. The mediation process has, given wonderful results in those cases where there has been successful participation and cooperative role and collaborative role of the advocates concerned. This is one area where I would like to request all of you to consider this. Why is this so important? See, mediation is a process where trust plays a very important role. There is a psychological background behind all these things. What is the psychological background? I trust that, not because I trust that. I trust that because I trust you and you trust that. Let me explain it in a simple language. Assuming for a while, let us think for a while, this is not a webinar, this is an actual one-on-one series where I have come from Madras or Delhi to address our young friends. Assuming for a while, I fall sick and I fall ill. Then if Mr. Ranganath or Mr. Vikram calls my husband would say, please admit him, whichever hospital you feel the best. So they will admit me to some hospital. My husband doesn't know who the doctor is, how good the hospital is. My husband has got trust in Vikram or Ranganath or XYZ. That XYZ have trust in that hospital and that doctor. That is how the link is. That's where I say, I trust that not because I trust that. I trust that because I trust you and you trust that. Your clients trust you. If you say to your clients, look, there is process known as mediation process. I have immense trust in that process. Why not we try? Unless you tell that to your clients, clients' participation will be purely mechanical. Many a times cases do not get resolved through mediation because it should not become mechanical sending of files or cases from one building to another building. It should not go from the judge's table to a mediator's table and get back to the judge's table without there being any settlement. This is one area where I request that the clients have imposed trust upon you. Why have they given their case to you? They want an end to the dispute. That is the logic behind it, which you need to look at it. Now you see, when we say this mediation, there are some salient features of mediation. One is that it shifts the focus of the parties from position to interest. What do you mean by that? Position is what I want. Interest is why you want what you want. I'll give you a small example. I want spectacles. This is my position. I want spectacles. I want spectacles. I'm jiddi about it. I'm very adamant about it. Why do you want? You will ask me. I will tell you, look, I'm 58-year-old. I have got short sight. I can't do anything without spectacles. I want these spectacles. This is interest. In mediation, if an advocate is trained in mediation advocacy, he will participate in such a way, supposing that in a suit schedule property, in a suit schedule that we have enclosed along with our plaint, if you look at the suit schedule properties, there may be 30 items of suit schedule properties. The advocate who is trained in mediation advocacy will ask them, please tell me why you want this item number 1, why you want item number 2. So you are shifting the focus from position to interest. Their idea is to get 1/3 share in all the 30 items. When you ask, do you want share in this 3 guntas of land? Do you want share in this small house? Do you want share in this estate? Do you want this? Then this 30 items will hardly come to 3 or 4 from this side and 2 or 3 from that side. Then what happens is the larger basket becomes a smaller basket and it will be easier for you to negotiate. This is one of the primary ideas where we want the assistance of the advocate. I mean, that's where I'm only giving glimpses. This is a vast subject by itself. I would like to impress upon my young friends to see how they can use this opportunity to get what the client wants. Another thing is, we always say mediation is a process which brings a paradigm shift in the mindset of the parties. It shifts the focus of the person from past to future. If you look at the plaint, we say cause of action arose on such and such a date. All disputes, they revolve around what has happened in the past. In mediation advocacy, we train the advocates to know for sure that none of us, whether we are advocates or doctors or engineers or farmers, none of us have any control over what has happened in the past. But to a major extent, we can mold our futures. That is where we are attracting the people, we are making them understand, look, maybe you have gone through a very sad saga all through, but we have no control over your past. Neither you have control nor I have control. Can you leave your past and can you look at future? That's where a paradigm shift is brought in the mindset of the parties to look at the future and move from past to future in the present. That is another aspect where we want the advocates to assist. Another thing that we need to look at is tangible and intangible goals. There are many cases where the brothers have filed a suit for partition and they said, I want so much, I want my share. At the end of the day, all the brothers say, if so-and-so agrees to so-and-so, we don't want any share. We will execute a relinquishment deed in his favor. So they're focused on getting something, but they do not want that. What exactly they want will not be made known in the plaint. That's where we say there are two types of problems. One is a projected problem, another is an actual problem. In a petition filed under Section 9 of the Hindu Marriage Act for restriction of conjugal rights, the wife was getting ready every week, very well dressed, and she was eager to go with her husband. The husband went on giving adjournment. When the advocate asked him, look, My client is coming every day well prepared to go with you. Your petition itself is for restitution of conjugal rights. Why don't you take her? He did not answer. When the mediator asked him, since 3 years you are living separate, what have you been doing for your livelihood? I mean, household arrangements, etc. Then that man said, oh, but for that Sukanya, my life would have been a great help. I look at the cast title. Cast title says wife's name is Sumashri. Then where is that Sukanya from? Sukanya has already entered his life in this 3 years period of time. Then why did you file a petition for restitution of conjugal rights? That person says, I filed this, I did not reveal it to my advocate also. I filed because somebody said, if you file a petition for restitution of conjugal rights, it will be easier for you to get a bail in case she files 490 against you. The wife was very, very adamant on going with her husband. The moment she came to know that her husband has already taken somebody else in his life, she said, Madam, close this issue. I am prepared to go for 13B. The matter got resolved. Why I am telling is, projected problem many a times is different. Actual problem is different. Only when you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will be able to catch hold of what exactly your client wants. Otherwise, even if you succeed in that restriction of conjugal rights case, probably his dispute will still be there. That is another aspect which I request you to consider. Look at another example. 4 brothers. There were 5 brothers from a very big, rich business family. 3 generations of business. 4 brothers were on one side and the youngest brother was on another side. Youngest brother was entrusted with handling this entire business. What happened was this youngest brother mismanaged the whole thing. The whole thing came to a mess. Then the 4 brothers said, you walk out of this partnership business and we will take care of this entire business. What is it that you want? Negotiation started. Every date of hearing, the brothers would say, we will give you 10 lakh rupees. He will say, I want 15 lakh rupees. Next day they come and say, okay, 15 lakhs. Next day he will increase it, 25 lakhs. These numbers went on going up and up. Every time they agreed, this number went on increasing. Then the lawyer's son, who was trained in mediation, one day accompanied the father and he said, look, something is troubling you. Why don't you talk to mediator? That person, the 5th son, the youngest son, who had to take some money and walk out of this partnership business, he said, Madam, what is disappointing me is that I can walk out of this. I know because of me, this family business has come down like this. And my brothers, 4 brothers are taking money from their individual business and they want the family name to be brought back to its original status. I appreciate that. But what is paining here is that if I walk out of this partnership business, it is as though only those 4 are born to my father and to that family, and I am not born in that family. This is something unacceptable. Look at this. Then with the permission of the party, we had to bring it back to the mediation table. How do you address this concern of the party? It's not the money. Money is only numbers for him. Then he said, give me some share. I will be a sleeping partner. They agreed 50,000 rupees, some share they agreed, and the advocates helped in preparing a beautiful draft. The matter ended. It did not even go to court. Why I'm telling this is, if you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will know that what is projected or what is being opposed, is not what actually is being opposed. There is something else behind a human being, which is taking control of these permutations and combinations that needs to be addressed. And the parties gave very wonderful fees, according to me, to both the advocates also. This is one aspect which I request you to consider. Now we say, when I say mediation advocacy, what do you mean by mediation advocacy? It is virtually partnering with the mediator. Mediation advocacy is nothing but partnering with the mediator to the knowledge of the other side advocate and his client, and with the consent of one's own client. I am partnering with a mediator. I tell my clients, look, I'm partnering with him. I'm expressing all these things with your consent. Whatever you permit me to speak, I'll speak. Or you can speak on these XYZ factors. And this factor is made known to the other side also and his client also, likewise from their side also. This is a totally transparent process. When I say partnering with the mediator, this is not my word as such. This is used by James Lawrence, a wonderful writer on the subject of mediation advocacy. Youngsters can read his book. Partnering with a mediator itself is the title of the book. His article is also available. Now you see, when I say mediation advocacy, what is something peculiar there? In mediation advocacy, you use problem solving as a primary method for resolving dispute. You do not use litigation as primary method for resolving dispute. This is number one idea. You use problem solving as a primary method of resolving dispute, but not litigation. Litigation becomes an alternative. Not that mediation becomes an alternative to litigation, but litigation becomes an alternative to mediation. The skills and strategies are required in mediation advocacy. They have to be trained here. When I say skills and strategies that are most useful and effective in a courtroom atmosphere may not be appropriate at the mediation table. This we need to understand. We have to define our role. If I'm a mediation advocate, then the skills and strategies that I have to adopt are entirely different. If I'm a litigating lawyer, then my skills and strategies are entirely different. These two, there should be a complete demarcation between the two. This, unless you know the difference, unless you are trained in the field, you will not know. Whatever tactics you use there, if you use here, this will not work. That is where I request that the skills and strategies that are most useful in courtroom scenarios may have to be parked somewhere. But once you develop some skills and strategies that are required for your mediation advocacy practice, those practices can be adopted in courtrooms also. Look at this. What you have been using in courtroom may not be useful at the mediation table, but through mediation advocacy, if you have learned some communication skills, if you have learned some negotiation skills, if you have learned some bargaining skills, definitely this will be useful in the courtroom scenario also. That is one advantage, because you are not going to lose anything by learning something through this mediation advocacy training. Now you see, one example I'll give you. How to listen itself is an art. You will learn that. If you are trained in mediation, or if you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will learn that. And in the courtroom scenario, you will never get, disturbed or agitated. You will be assertive, but you will never be aggressive. You will never feel, very disturbed when the other side advocate or when the other side client makes some remarks or uses some type of language which you feel that it should not have been used. These are all areas where I feel that even setting an agenda, setting an atmosphere, what should be said, when it should be said, how we have to persuade, and how we cannot persuade, what are our limitations, all these trainings, and the best of the communication skills, some of the very wonderful questioning skills will be learned in mediation advocacy training. This is another area where I request all of you to consider. Now you say, how important is it for an advocate to adopt this mediation advocacy practices? You have to assist the parties in negotiation. Basically, because many parties may not be able to negotiate by themselves. They may rely upon their advocates. I have seen in mediations, even when I say, please come and be seated, they will not enter the mediation room at all until their advocate comes. They'll be looking at the door itself. They will ask me, madam, don't say anything. I'm only saying namaste. Even namaste also, madam ji, you tell after our advocate comes. That is the faith they have in the advocate. That's where I request that the advocates should take it very seriously. It is like a child they have given to you. It's like a child that they have entrusted to a parent. So that is where we need to take it very seriously and logically. When I say negotiation, in the context of mediation advocacy, what you need to understand is negotiation is, what is negotiation? What is acceptable? Taking what is acceptable at an acceptable price. Taking what you want at an acceptable price. I'll just share one small anecdote here. It's a funny anecdote, but it has relevance here. Professor Brown, he may be a fiction figure. Professor Brown was walking on the beach, barefooted, 90-year-old man. Suddenly, he felt that he has stamped on something very soft. He bent down and looked, there was a frog. So he picked up the frog. The frog started talking to him. The frog said, "Mr. Professor, please kiss me. I'll turn out to be a wonderful, beautiful woman, young woman." Professor put that frog back into the pocket and continued his walk. Every day he started doing that. Frog used to talk on many aspects, and the professor also used to talk on various subjects. And one fine day, after 3-4 days, the frog asked Professor, "Look, if you kiss me, I will be a wonderful woman." Professor said, "What am I going to do with a wonderful woman at this 90th year of my age? I want a companion who would speak to me, with whom I can share." That's where I say negotiation is not what you think appropriate for your client. It is what is appropriate for them. Negotiation is what a person wants at an acceptable price. What is acceptable price is to be left to the discretion of the parties themselves. If you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will know all these things. I'll give you an example. For example, a sister had filed a partition suit against her 2 brothers. She was in US, she had married a Christian boy, much against the wish of her father. Father had died because he couldn't digest the fact that his daughter has married a Christian. Though brothers tried to convince father, it was unacceptable to father. So daughter had gone to US and she's gainfully employed, and her husband is also a very decent person. This house is a small house in Bangalore. She had filed, when she came back to India, the brothers did not allow her to enter the house. She said she filed a suit for partition. She was pressurizing her lawyer, that I should get 1/3 share. Am I not entitled for share in the property? Almost 3 to 4 years were over. Then, when we asked about all these things, why you want what you want, this is called as interest-based bargaining. Position-based bargaining is, I want this. Interest-based bargaining is why you want what you want. When we went to that area, with the cooperative role of the advocates, the lady said, "Look, madam, I'm not at all interested in this property. This is nothing for me. I want my brothers to accept me as a sister." Look at this, how wonderful it is. If you are not trained in mediation advocacy, you will be trying to get her 1/3 share. She has to come once in a way from US to India, and nothing happens here. She has to get back. After there is a preliminary decree, there is FDP, and so many things are there. Looking at all these things, a question may rise in our mind. If we have to resolve all these disputes like this, why should we undergo this 5 years course or 3 years law course? What will happen to our experience at the bar, etc.? You are using a combination of experience and expertise. There is substantive law, there is a procedural law. You will explain to the parties, in mediation advocacy, if you are trained, you will explain to the parties how the entire process will go. Mediation is a structured process. There is one concept known as reality testing, where, notwithstanding the fact that I'm sure that you will get 1/3 share in the property, what all you have to do to get that 1/3 share. A house cannot be divided like a Mysore pak. It has to go through its own process. What are you ultimately achieving? Is it that you want? Then probably she will say, "No, I want my brother's love." Or another person may say, "No, I want something from this." How they work out the probabilities is up to them. That is where we say parties' right of self-determination is something which we respect at most in mediation. And through mediation advocacy, we try to achieve that angle also. In the whole process, one concept that we need to understand here is mediation. In mediation advocacy, the advocates can work very freely and very comfortably. Every client who brings and puts file in front of us wants his case to be won. That's a pressure somewhere. Unless we are 50, I mean, we cross 50, I don't think this will go. Some of you might have achieved it at a very young age. Post 50s, naturally, we may get a sense that, oh, nothing we can do. We need not have to get disturbed or agitated, whether a case is won or lost, because it is his problem, his life, and his property. We can do only our best. But what happens is, if you are trained in mediation advocacy, during the course of conversation on the mediation table, a party who thinks that his case is absolutely very wonderful case and he has to succeed will know the difficulties of reaching that level, number one. Number two, he will also know what are the weaknesses in the case. These are some of the aspects which will be made known to them, so that indirectly we will be protecting our health also, our mental health also, our physical health also. Because that pressure, once you participate in mediation, maybe they agree, maybe they do not agree. That's a different issue. But that pressure, which is so much on you to see to it that your client wins, will slowly fade away, and you will start working in a neutral manner. Looking at the case, what best you can do, you will work on those lines. This is another advantage of mediation advocacy. I would go one step further. Assuming for a while, a person wants something to be done in a particular manner. You know, you will tell in the reality testing process on the mediation at the mediation table, you will know, the client will also come to know what can the court do. What cannot the court do? What will the court do? What will not the court do? There is difference between can and cannot for the courts, also will and will not for the courts do. What can be expected? What cannot be expected? And how it will happen, when it will happen. All these things they will know. Probably looking at all these parameters, they will come to a situation where they agree to something or do not agree to something. This is another aspect. I'll give an example of some bargaining strategies. There are different types of bargaining. There are different types of negotiation styles adopted by persons also. But if the types of negotiation are taken, there are competitive negotiation and cooperative negotiation. When we have an advocate trained in mediation and advocacy there, the competitive negotiation gets itself turned into principled negotiation or cooperative negotiation, where both will look at a win-win situation. They will make their clients understand one basic concept. In order for you to win, it is not necessary that the other person should lose. Please understand this. In order for you to win, it is always not necessary that the other person should lose. Both of you can win. There are many permutations and combinations. There are different options that we can generate by which both of you can win and both of you can feel satisfied. That is what we are looking at through this mediation advocacy. I was referring to some bargaining strategies. For example, there is positional bargaining or right-based bargaining, where I rely upon documents, title deeds, etc., in my favor. I say I have 100% case. In the mediation, we have an opening statement where the mediator explains the entire process, how it goes. Thereafter, in the joint session, they make the position statements. That is, what they want, why they want, what they do not want to happen, why they do not want to happen. They will tell sometimes. They will, otherwise they will only say what they want to happen, what they do not want to happen. In their position statements, they will go with this position-based bargaining or right-based bargaining, where they will say, look, these are the title deeds. Supposing it's a suit for declaration, These are the title deeds from 1930 to 2020. Revenue records are in my favor. Registered documents are in my favor. So I had to be declared. Supposing, imagine a situation where a plaintiff is a person who has filed a suit for declaration based on adverse possession. There is not even one document there. No title deeds, no revenue documents. But still he says, I want this property, I want this property. Just as I said in the beginning, I want this spectacle, I want this spectacle. This is position-based bargaining. We shift the focus of the party from position-based bargaining to interest-based bargaining. We ask this plaintiff through the mediation, the advocate trained in mediation advocacy, who will gently ask them, why do you want, what do you want? Can you help us understand? He will say, look, that person who has filed a suit for declaration based on adverse possession, he will say, since 200 years, our family have been serving this defendant's family. They said this 8 acres of land is yours, you enjoy, but at the same time, work for us in other lands also and for our family also. We trusted their forefathers and today they are going back on their promises. We never wanted them to execute any document, but the whole of the village knows it is we who are in absolute control of this 8 acres of land. We want this property. Then when we go to plaintiff and ask, defendant and ask him, they will say title deeds are like this. He has got 100% case. As lawyers, we know that the plaintiff has got, the defendant has got 100% case and plaintiff's case is very poor. What do? You take permission from the plaintiff to disclose about this 200 years history. You make a joint session in the presence of the advocate where he feels secured. That is where mediation advocacy comes into role. The atmosphere, setting an atmosphere is very important in mediation, where the parties feel very secured in the presence of their advocates. In the presence of the advocate, the plaintiff will say, look, since 200 years we have been doing like this, and now they are asking us to get back from this. How do we take this? Then after this session, the defendants come and say, just because they have worked for us for 200 years, can we give them 8 acres? Then the advocate will also get a cue. The mediator will also get a cue. That means they are agreeable to give something, but not 8 acres. That's where another strategy comes. Another type of bargaining is distributive bargaining. Distributive bargaining is you distribute the pie. 8 acres is distributed. You take so much, I take so much. So they agreed to take 3 acres, 5 acres was agreed to be given back to the defendants. But at the time of drafting this settlement date, once again they said, no, we don't want to have them as neighbors anymore. 200 years is enough. We don't want to any risk. They have gone back. In mediation, parties are allowed to go back on their promises. That is one of the advantages they have, which the advocate, while impressing upon the clients to participate in mediation, will tell them, look, you need not have to bother about anything. Any concessions, offers or admissions made by you will not be recorded, and you can go back on your promises at any point of time. And unless you sign, there is no compulsion on your part. Now they have gone back. What do? Then there is another type of bargaining, integrated bargaining. What do? They tell, the defendants tell, look, we have some other property in Dodbalapura. We will give these parties 2 crore rupees and lands in Dodbalapura. Let them not claim any share in this property. Finished. You are bringing an external element which was not even a suit schedule property for resolution of the dispute. Is it not fine for them? Look at this. Had we taken this case up to Supreme Court, how would they have felt? Maybe in one area they would have lost, another area they would have got, and again there was situation of remand. And even if there's a decree, they always had a threat. A court's order, with great respect and humility at my command, I would like to say, it brings an end to litigation, but it never brings an end to a dispute. But now the dispute also gets resolved. That's where we are looking at. And the advocates were paid wonderful fees in that case. That's where request your counsels to look at mediation advocacy as one of the tools in order to enhance our professional skills. Now it's 6:45. I was asked to take this session till 6:45. Is it okay, Mr. Trivikram?
Ma'am, you can continue, ma'am. Up to 7 o'clock, you can continue.
I don't want to, deviate from the, I'm very particular about managing time. Anyhow, thank you. Now we say there is another concept known as reactive devaluation. What is reactive devaluation? Reactive devaluation is a psychological phenomenon where the best of the offers given by the opponent is not accepted by an individual only because it is offered by the opponent. I'll give you a small example. I love sweets. I love laddus. I can eat 10 to 15 laddus at a time, but I don't like Mr. Vikram. Supposing Vikram gives me laddu, I don't take it. I don't relish it. Why? Sweet is a sweet, laddu is a laddu. But just because it is given by Mr. Vikram, whom I hate, he is no more my brother. I don't consider him as my brother. He is my enemy. That's where I do not relish that. This is where the reactive devaluation happens. In most of the cases that we are seeing today, the daughters are filing suits for partition. The brothers come and say, even where Section 8 is applicable, father's self-acquired property, father is dead. Ideally speaking, if it is self-acquired property, both daughters and sons should get equally. Even there, the brothers will say, we are ready to give 1 acre. These persons will say, who are they to give us? I don't want anything, even 1 rupee also from them. I want whatever is given by court, I am ready to take it. Look at this. That's where, if you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will not say, look, the other side is prepared to give 2 acres instead of 5 acres. You will not tell. You will only say, you will hide the source of the information. What is the source of the information? Who has given you the source of information? The other side client has given you source of information. If you are trained in mediation advocacy, you will monitor the words in such a way and you will use the words in such a way, assuming for a while, you have asked, ideally speaking, going by the rule book of law, you are entitled to get 4 acres. Assuming for a while there is any settlement where you can take 2 acres instead of 4 acres, how do you think about it? She will say yes. And the brothers also will be fine-tuned by their advocate, and they will say it is not you who has to give to your sisters, but it is your sisters who are giving something to you. You are at the receiving end. You are not at the giving end. These things we cannot tell as mediators very roughly. We will make use of the cooperative role of advocates, and in their presence, if they are trained in mediation advocacy, the language itself will be different. I'll tell you why I told you that this mediation advocacy helps you in your personal life also, and also in your communication skills in the court also. I'll give you a small example. 5 acres of land, 100 acres of land, father self-acquired property, father died, 5 children. Each should get 20 acres. All the 4 are in different cities, 2 are in US also. The eldest brother is the one who is in the village taking care of this 100 acres. 100 ekare yajamana, 100 acres landlord is the prestigious title given to that Ishwar Prasad ji. I'm giving a name. Now I have changed the name. Now you see, every date of hearing they came. They had given some concessions. This person was not agreeable to accept that. Whatever the concessions brothers gave, he was not agreeable, because all that was bothering him was, till this day I was considered as owner of 100 acres, that prestige I enjoyed. If 20 acres is given to each one of them, tomorrow I am only 20-acre old person. In our village, there are other persons who are also having 25 acres, 30 acres. Then I will be considered not as a superior person in our village, is what is working on in his mind. After several sessions, he said every time he would come and say, I want time. I want further time. These brothers, 4 brothers would say, Pujani Bhav Sahab, that's the elder man, eldest brother. पूजनीय ईश्वर प्रसाद जी, भाव साहब कैसे बोलते हैं वैसे हो जाए मैडम. ओके. पूजनीय पूजनीय पूजनीय, 3 dates over. 4th date again he came. That's Honorable Shri so and so is what let us think forever. And we will let you give date to the convenience of Honorable Shri so and so. Okay. 3 dates are given. He comes and every time he takes. Again, these people say Honorable so and so. 4th date he comes. Then this person again he seeks for time. This person, these 4 persons say, श्री ईश्वर प्रसाद जी को कितना टाइम चाहिए उतना टाइम जी. ऑनरेबल चला गया. श्री ईश्वर प्रसाद. Again 3-4 dates happened passed, but he did not come for settlement. Again he came. Then this person said, श्री ईश्वर प्रसाद को जो डेट चाहिए उसे दे दो मैडम. सो श्री भी चला गया, ऑनरेबल चला गया, श्री भी चला गया, ईश्वर प्रसाद को आ गया. Then again next 4th time, 4th series, each time is 3 or 4 weeks time in between, 4 adjournments in between. 4th time they said, ask that fellow when he will give his final proposal. Ask that fellow. Luckily there was an advocate who was trained in mediation advocacy. Then again this man said, I want to talk to you. Then that advocate came and right in front of me he asked, you are looking at your honor, your respect in the entire village because you are owning 100 acres of land. Please help me understand. I have been carefully watching the words used by your brothers. When the mediation started, they said Pujani Ishwar Prasad ji. Then they said Shri Ishwar Prasad ji. Then they said Ishwar Prasad ji. Then they said that fellow. If your own brothers have stopped giving respect to you, do you think you can expect it from anywhere else? This is not what the mediator said. The advocate asked him to. And he said, with a caveat he started, please don't mistake me for asking this question. That person thought for a while and he said, I am agreeable for settlement. All the brothers came and said, we don't want 20 acres each. Let him give 5 acres to each one of us. Let him keep 80 acres. And these 5 acres also, let there be a partition deed. We will not go there. Let him only enjoy. But let the mutation entries be made in our names. A wonderful settlement. Look at how the person who is trained in mediation advocacy could track the track of using a prefix to a name from honorable to that fellow. This is the, you know what value is to be given to words, what value should not be given to words, how you value something, how the emotions are to be addressed, how relationships have to be respected, nourished and cared. Where the relationship is very toxic, where you have to move away from the relationships. All these permutations and combinations, it is required for us to enhance, and it is time for us to look at this, because law is, again, I don't think that law is a philosophy by itself. We cannot take it as a dry subject. We can no more take it as a dry subject. It is, we are peacemakers. Our role is beyond the courtroom is what we need to look at. There is 6 minutes time left. If anybody has got any questions to be asked, I request them to ask any questions if they have. And
Thank
one
you,
more
ma'am.
request I want to make. Please get trained in mediation, those who are capable of and who can afford to get trained in mediation. Please get trained in mediation advocacy also. I for myself would offer my services pro bono. I will not charge. Maybe there are good friends of mine who can also join in my team, and then they may also give this service. I request Bar Council, members of the Bar Council and members of this, active members of this Advocates Association Bangalore to give training in mediation advocacy. Even through online also we can do it, so that if it's 2 days training, it will be really helpful for them is what I think, but it is for them to take a decision, because I don't want to enter into the arena of your right of self-determination. Thank you all for your patient hearing. I'm really humbled that seniors like Rangarajan and Gupta ji and all those persons have attended this. And it's a blessing for me is what I would like to consider it as.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us on the art of mediation. Now, can we move on to the Q&A session, ma'am?
Please, please.
Yes, Akash, request you to unmute the lines. Here, I would like to request all my learned colleagues to confine their questions only to the topic of discussion, because we know your inquisitiveness, but my only request is we will confine it to the topic of discussion. Thank you.
Vikram?
Yes, sir.
Madam, namaste.
Namaste, sir.
My hearty congratulations to you, and I compliment you also. You have given entirely a new dimension, a new perspective to the subject on hand. You have established that you have acquired all the skills and expertise, and I wish the younger members of the bar, our fraternity, should emulate this. Two things I wish to tell you. Maybe some 25 years ago, Justice Bhagavati, in one of the rent control cases, made a wonderful remark. That was a case where a landlord filed an eviction case. The court expected him to keep money, to keep training, acquire skill, everything. The matter was taken to Supreme Court. It was already some 25-30-year-old. What Justice Bhagavati then said was, the Indian legal system is faced with two uncertainties. Uncertain as to time, uncertain as to result.
Very true.
In Kannada, we say, Geddavanu Sota, Sotavanu Satta. Number one. Number two, yesterday or so, I read somewhere in social media that younger members in Delhi have approached the Supreme Court and have requested the Supreme Court that in every civil matter, pre-mediation must be made mandatory. Now this becomes all the more important because let us visualize and think, possibly COVID may settle down by end of December. Imagine the physical appearance commencing from Jan. There is going to be mad rush. Again, dependency will grow up. Therefore, you have been extremely wonderful. High time that as advocates, we should encourage mediation and all alternative sources of settlement outside the court. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Can we have the first question, please?
Madam, I am Venkat Narayan. I have a question, madam.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Madam, good evening, madam.
Good evening.
My question is that when in a dispute, when the government or the government authority is one of the party to the dispute, is mediation effective then also, madam? Because the government will have its own constraints, madam.
That's where you see, we say that decision taking is something, decision making is different. In mediation philosophy, if you read properly, what happens is there are two processes involved. One is decision making process, another is decision taking process. The persons who are involved in decision making sometimes from the government side are different, and the persons at the helm of the affairs who are persons who are to take decisions are different. That's where what happens is we are looking at a mechanism. It was Dr. Pratap Bhanu Behta who said, government is the largest litigant of our country, in our country. If you look at any statistics, majority of the cases are by or against government. That's where we are looking at a situation where even cases filed by the government or against the government can also be, if it is possible, if it comes within the parameters of this mediation, then probably it has to come. Answering your question, whether it happens or if he is authorized to take decision, that person will come and do it. In one of the banking cases, I'll give you an example. I mediated in the beginning years of my practice as a mediator. It was a 10 crores matter. At the end of the day, the manager said, my limit is only up to 50,000 rupees. In a 10 crore matter, 50,000 rupees concession, I don't think anybody will agree. Then what will happen? So you have to involve the persons who are decision takers in the whole process. Even in matrimonial matters also this happens. I'll give you an analogy. The girl wants to go with the boy, but girl's father says like this, don't go. That's where we have to identify who are the persons who have to take decision, involve them in the process, even government cases. Or there has to be a proper authorization. Otherwise, everyone is afraid. If it is a heavy stakes matter, if I agree today, if I give some concessions today, probably tomorrow they will say, I am lured by something else. That's why I had given this concession. I don't want to take that blame, is what even statutory authorities many a times have disclosed. These are all areas we are working on. Probably law will evolve and a situation will come where proper authority or authorization is given to some person to participate in the decision making process and also to take decision. These are two different aspects, decision making and decision taking.
Madam, I have a question.
Please, sir.
Madam, with regard to this mediation, I have a case wherein the other party, the respondent in a matrimonial case, the respondent has agreed to give some LIC bonds in respect of the permanent alimony. Apart from the other payments, other permanent alimony, this is also one of the permanent alimonies he wants to make. So when I peruse the LIC bonds, these LIC bonds are in the name of the mother, father, his sister, and all. But how can you give that? But the mediator says, no, you accept it. It will be done. You accept it, it will be done. But I don't know how could it be possible. So in that regard, is there any binding on the parties for the when the mediator says, no, it's a wonderful settlement, you take it?
Sir, no settlement is wonderful unless parties agree to it.
No. Parties, excuse me, madam. May I interrupt? Madam.
And number two is, you are hired by them to protect the interest of your client. It is for you to tell your client. That's where the advocate's role is equally important. There is, in mediation advocacy training, we also train them how to look at the agreements, how not to agree to something which is not executable. See, this is a case where ultimately it may not be an executable decree. So you are there to protect their interest. I don't think a mediator can say it is a wonderful settlement. We will only say, look at the settlement. If it is agreeable to you, you can do it. It is for you to withdraw from the process. Nobody says that you should agree to what the mediator can never suggest, number one. Nevertheless, if you have participated in the process, if you want to agree, you can agree. If you don't want to agree, you cannot agree. You need not agree. And where there is a threat to your client's interest, it is your duty as an advocate to protect the interest of the client. That is.
But parties agreeable for this settlement. How can I say that you go for the settlement? But the mediator says, no, you go for the settlement. It is happening. It will happen. How could it be possible? I don't know.
That is where we say, working on the workable solutions. How do you bring it within the workable solutions? What are the safety measures? How do you do that? Whether you terminate that LIC policy and start some other policy, take that fund, invest again in the name of the wife and children, something of that kind. It has to be worked out. That is where your skills are required as an advocate, assisting the parties in negotiation. Thank you, sir.
Can we have the next question, please? Madam, can we have
Please, sir. Please.
your turn? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wonderful discourse by you, madam. Now coming to your mediation, it's not a question. The advocates also should act as a mediator along with the mediator appointed by the mediator section. Am I correct, madam?
We don't say that unless you're trained. See, supposing I'm a trained mediator, I can participate in mediation as an advocate. Supposing I'm a trained mediator, I can participate in mediation as an advocate for my client. There will be Mr. Gupta as a mediator.
Yes.
If I'm trained in mediation, the way in which I assist in the mediation process and I get larger benefit for my client is entirely different if you are not trained in mediation. That is the difference, that's all. But I suggest that if you are trained in mediation, it has always got an advantageous edge.
So proper environment should be given.
Yes. There is a topic called as setting an atmosphere. Setting an atmosphere itself is a topic. Supposing my father-in-law comes, I may not be willing to talk anything in front of my father-in-law. So that atmosphere has to be again restructured. If my brother-in-law comes, I may open up very neatly. So setting an atmosphere itself is different. Some people may not be willing to speak in front of their advocates also. So there will be some confidential information. They may disclose it to us. Then we take the permission of the advocates on record. Look, here is a person who wants to speak something confidential. Is it okay for you to allow that? If the advocate says, then only we will go ahead. Otherwise, we will not go against the mandate given by the advocate to continue being with the party. Ultimately, we tell none of us will insist upon the parties to agree to something without consulting their advocates. Only when the advocates are consulted, the draft will be finally settled, and we involve the lawyers also in the drafting of the final settlement. That's where Muralidhar's question plays a very vital role.
Madam, in a settlement, you draw a settlement and like a memorandum, but it will be signed by the parties. It will not be signed by the mediator. It will not be signed by the advocates, and that will be referred to the civil court for acceptance before the court. Why the mediator is not signing?
Sir, there are different concepts here. In fact, we don't have a standalone legislation for mediation. As of now, we are going by the rules of the, because there is an immunity clause. A mediator cannot be questioned tomorrow as to what transpired in mediation, or he cannot be questioned as to who said what or what happened, why it did not happen, all those things. This is one aspect. And coming to the question of advocate signing, definitely there is a provision in our mediation settlement drafts where we take the signatures of the advocates, where if he is a party in person, there is a different clause there. If there is an advocate and the party wants to waive the presence of the advocate also, there is a specific form there. They sign that form and then the process takes place. Otherwise, the advocate is involved. Never, you see here in Western countries, the moment a mediation settlement is entered into between the parties, it takes the nature of a deemed decree. But as far as our courts are concerned, now that we don't have a statute as on this day, this will again go before the concerned court. In the concerned court, the judge will ask, have you agreed upon this? If the parties say no, or if one of the parties say no, then they will not even look into it. They will go ahead with adjudication. Or if the parties say yes, we have agreed, then the judge will once again look into the entire settlement agreement. If it is not in conformity with Order 23, Rule 3, whatever is provided under Order 23, he can even reject. The judge can also reject. These are the, safeguards that are provided for any client or both the disputing parties.
Thank you, ma'am. In between, we have a lot of messages on the Q&A box, and most of the messages are, they have thanked you. Isn't it a brilliantly explained the need for mediation advocacy? Ma'am, thank you. I'm so happy I got a chance to learn from you. Thanks, ma'am. Very nice. It was brushing up. So these are the, they have conveyed their gratitude to you. Mr. Chandrakant Raju has a question. Is there any course official for mediation services? I think it's a very good question that should be addressed, ma'am.
I could
There is
not.
a-
What's it?
If there is a specific course for an
Yes.
advocate to undergo, so that
Mhm.
is question posed by one of the learned brother
Yeah.
advocate.
See, different institutions are giving 5 days course. 40 hours course is a mandatory course, which any advocate to act as a mediator. That's one of the aspects. From Bangalore Mediation Center, under the aegis of, High Court, our High Court, some advocates are being selected, and then there is a big list. Everyone wants to get trained. There are some private mediation institutions which are also giving training in mediation. CMR college is offering, NLS college is offering, different colleges are offering. That's different. But even Harvard's program on negotiation is there, Harvard's mediation course is there, Pepperden's course is there, all are there. But if you want to go for a cost-effective process, I request the Bar Council, with all humility at my command, Bar Council and Bar Association or Advocates Association Bengaluru to join hands with each other and to provide mediation advocacy training for the present, for the younger generation. Because if we are looking at advocates being trained in mediation, the private institutions are not telling that you should be an advocate for n number of years. But if it is through BMC, there is a clause there where it says, if you have practiced for 15 years, then only you are entitled to undergo training as a mediator. And then you have to complete n number of successful mediations or n number of mediations. Thereafter, you will be enrolled as a mediator with the Bangalore Mediation Center. These are every institution has got its own framework for all these things. I suggest even for those persons, if you want everyone to be trained as mediator, whether they would work as mediator or not, even that can be taken. If it can be cost effective and helpful, people can try doing that. There is nothing that you are going to lose. There is something known as loss and gain theory. We are all adults. Adults should not take up any venture where there is a loss assured. If there is a loss assured, we should never take up that. If there is a gain assured, we have to venture. There are some areas where you are sure you are not going to undergo loss, but whether you are going to gain something or not, you will know only at the end of the course. This is one such course. I assure you that you will never undergo any loss. All of you can try on this.
Can we have the next question, please? Can we quickly have the next question? I think that's about it, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And
Madam, this is Balkrishna from Hyderabad.
yes, sir.
Please, sir.
Madam, you not only trained in Karnataka, you trained all in Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh also. That is. And Mr. Shankar also is in participation, the Bar Council member, I think. You trained Mr. Shankar also. Not only the Bar Council of Karnataka members, the other state members are also were trained by you. Madam, there are two questions. One is, sometimes defendant or some other person or the plaintiff for a while, they are not taking part in the proceedings. That's standing as an obstruction. Otherwise, normally these are all the matters which can really be settled. So far, I think there is no mechanism wherein one cannot be compelled, as it is a process. That is one factor, madam. The other one is, nowadays, as many of the proceedings are in virtual mode, so normally the confidentiality and several other things are also involved in this. If virtual mediation is done, there is every likelihood that other persons, normally mediators may not be recording it, but other persons may have an opportunity to record. How to overcome this? These are the two challenges that in future the mediation will be facing. As you are much experienced, I thought that you would be throwing much light on that.
One is the question of party not participating. One of the parties participating. If both the parties participate, you feel that that matter can be resolved. It is because of this only under Section 89, the judge would have used his power, because under Section 89, whenever he sees an element of settlement, then the matter will be referred to any one of the modes. But according to you, it might have got referred to mediation. If they have not attended, we can't do anything, because for the simple reason that it's a voluntary process. In India, people are yet to know more about mediation. All that they need to know is they are not compelled to agree or disagree on anything. They can only participate in mediation. First, ensure participation where there is no threat. They should feel that there is no threat to any of our rights in participating. This is where awareness on mediation should also go hand in hand. Not only for advocates. Advocates should feel that this is an area where we are getting benefited. Our financial growth is there, our intellectual growth is assured, our professional development is there. This is the area where we have to get ourselves enlightened. The clients also must, disputing parties must also get enlightened that they are not going to lose anything. This is one aspect. Coming to virtual mediation, there are so many clauses. We enter into an agreement. We just do not go into the, go to adopt virtual mediation. There are so many forms that will be taken. There will be agreements inter se between the parties. If we are into virtual mediation, our opening statement itself will be different. How confidentiality is protected and what should be done, what should not be done. By and large, if it is an online mediation, many cases what we see is we have an agreement with the service providers. It can be Zoom, it can be WebEx, it can be anybody. There are so many safety clauses provided. So there are different rooms there also. So we make it a point. Supposing today when I'm talking to you, if my assistant is sitting next to me, I will declare that my assistant is sitting next to me only to provide technical assistance here, and he or she will not, and an agreement will be taken even by him that she will not disclose anything that has happened here to anybody else. So many safety clauses are there. In fact, we are late. Worldwide, they are using this. Time has come now where we should not be spending our time on commuting, all those things. Where it is absolutely necessary, there we can go ahead with physical mediation. A day has come, it is not online dispute resolution, it is not alternative dispute resolution. A day will come, as Rahim Shamji of ADR ODR rightly said, it is just dispute resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We also see Mr. Joe Joseph, who's a trained mediator from our BMC. Sir, you can also share your views before we conclude the session. You will have to unmute yourself. We are not able to hear you, sir. You are not unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Madam is one of my mentors. If you talk about time, I always take it from her. Planning, how to do it, she has taught me. So it was a pleasure for me to be with this group and listen to her. Now what she said, it is not something unknown to all of us. We do negotiate, we bargain, all this is happening in our own life. In mediation, what is happening is, it is being done systematically through the process that is given by the mediation. So that is done. So once it is done through the systematic way, it gets into a clear good shape over there where nobody feels hurt or nobody feels lost. So Madam said very clearly, through the bargaining and the communication, finally you say it's a win-win situation. When someone wants something from position to interest, I'm looking for this pen. I don't want anything else. If that is given to me, I'm happy, I'm walking out. Whatever else is in the plaint or the schedules are all given to the other side, they're also happy. So what happens? There is no fight at all. The dispute, conflict, everything is clear from the root. So I was ready to call Madam and tell her that pro bono training, in case she can accommodate me, I am very much available and I will be ready and I'll be happy to do that for my colleagues and my younger generation over there. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Do we have any more questions? Can we conclude the session now? All right. Ma'am, personally, I know how you are placed presently with the MCPC project associated with assigned by Honorable Supreme Court of India. But despite that, you have executed today's webinar. My many thanks to you on my personal behalf and behalf of Advocates Association Bangalore. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With the permission, we'll be logging off the session, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.